Okay, so welcome everyone to the Open Applied Linguistics Reading Club Meet the Author series. It's our great honor and pleasure to have Dr. Ali H. Al-Hoorie to join us today. Ali Al-Hoorie is an associate professor at the Jubail English Language and Preparatory Year Institute, Royal Commission for Jubail and Yabu, Saudi Arabia. He completed his PhD in applied linguistics at the University of Nottingham under the supervision of Professor Stoughton Donier and Norbert Smith. He also holds an MA with distinction in social science data analysis from Access University. His research interests include motivation theory, research methodology, and complexity. And the article we're discussing today is the moral schizophrenia in the fight against big publisher. This is an article published in Dutch Journal of Applied Linguistics. So the agenda for today is that we have two questions already for Ali, and then there will be a free Q&A. So please prepare your questions. My first question, welcome, Ali. Could you say hi to the audience?
Hi, thank you for having me today.
It's great to have you. Could you tell us a little bit about your response article and what motivated you to write it?
Thank you again for having me today to talk about this article, which is about a very important topic for academics, especially in the global south. People in the global north may or may not appreciate the problems that global south researchers experience when they try to access the literature in their disciplines. And so global south researchers should speak up and convey their problems. So it's a long title with big words, as you just read it, and I chose the word big publisher to compare it to big pharma. And the reason why I chose this expression is that just like in big pharma, the original intention in the pharmaceutical industry is to provide medicine to people, but there are financial interests that sometimes conflict with their mission and can negatively influence their intended consumers. Also, with big publishers, also their mission is to spread knowledge through their publications, journals, and books, etc. But there is an inherent financial interest, which again can conflict and can negatively influence some or a subset of their consumers at least. So, to understand this issue, let's look at it historically first. Decades ago, um, there was a genuine need for these publishers and their business model. Because in the past, people didn't have computers, didn't have Word, Microsoft, didn't have all these apps to write up things. All they'd had was a typewriter. And imagine writing typing up using a typewriter a whole article. Sometimes you have tables, sometimes you have equations. It becomes very cumbersome. And so there was a need at that time for a service to do this job for academics. So publishers came and said, we are going to do this service for you. And anybody who does a service for anybody, they will ask for a compensation. So they could have charged academics for this service, but they didn't. They said, instead of you paying us, sign an agreement to give us the copyrights so that we can sell your article and we can, you, my neighbor, thank you, my neighbor. I'm not sure what this means. So that we get the copyrights so that we can sell your article using this copyright agreement, and then we recoup our investment in making this copy editing and typesetting, etc., so that you don't have to do it. At that time, this wasn't a problem for anybody because academics were few anyway. There were so few in comparison to today. Universities weren't that many. There were just a few universities here and there. Journals and publishers weren't that many. There were just a few publishers and a few journals here and there. So academics, especially in Western countries, an academic would go to their library, will see the physical copies of the journals on the shelf, pick the book they want, pick the journal issue that they want, and just read it. And they didn't even need to be aware of what was happening behind the scenes. Everything was there for them. So at that time, everything worked fine. After some time, the number of universities grew, the number of academics grew, the number of journals and publishers grew. Now we have a journal about everything, every topic. Now there is dozens of journals. So more and more people started to struggle with paywalls. Even some academics in Western universities, their libraries started to struggle with the cost of subscriptions. They started to cancel subscriptions to some journals because it's just the prices are just increasing year after year. So if some publishers if some academics are struggling in the global north, you can just imagine the struggle that global south researchers experience when they try to access the literature. And if you can't access the literature, basically you can't contribute to this literature. You need to read the latest literature first in order to be able to contribute to that literature. And if you can't contribute to this literature, then you can't have your voices heard. The dominant voice will be from the global north. Now, the other issue in this is that many researchers in the global north, in the global south, are stuck in this system. They are academics by profession. They are required to publish in ranked journals and indexed journals, but they can't have access to the literature. So they are stuck in this system. They are supposed to do this, but they don't have the resources to do this. So either they have to pay like $35 for each article, or sometimes $50 for just an article of 10 pages or 15 pages, which is absolutely ridiculous, regardless of how short that article is, regardless of how old that article is. It's just the same price across the board. It's just, a complete joke. If either they have to pay for it, or they have to contact the author and request for a copy of that article. Sometimes authors change their emails, change their institutions. Sometimes they retire all the time. They die, of course. If you want to read an article that you happen to have an article that is relevant to you, and that article was published in the 80s and the 70s, there is a good chance that you will have a hard time contacting that author. So yes, so this article tried to shed light on this issue that Global South researchers in particular are struggling with.
Yes, thanks for sharing an overview of the history between the trouble existing of getting the article published and the copyright issue, etc. And even though there's a way to get the article, like contacting the authors, that might be also difficult and is not absolutely not the best solution. And also in the article, you propose a roadmap, three-stage roadmap. And yeah, I think Meng has a question on that.
Yeah, actually, I was going to get to that. So I think you've already made a very compelling case for why it is high time for change. And I think perhaps you can introduce to the audience like the roadmap that you proposed, which I find highly interesting, like the three-stage roadmap to achieve diamond open access field wide.
There is a question in the chat about what does the global north mean and global south mean. Basically, if you want to simplify things, the west is the global north and the east is the global south. Though it's just an oversimplification, but you can think of it like this. The global north are the wealthy countries and the global south are the less privileged countries. So in this article, which is a response to another article by Andringas and colleagues, the situation is that what is happening currently in academia is morally and ethically problematic because of the inequality that this system is creating, and making a change is an ethical imperative on academics. And so this is why I called it moral schizophrenia, because pretty much anybody will agree that this is, inequitable and morally problematic and ethically problematic, but they go and contribute to this, sometimes because they have to contribute to this. But sometimes they say, oh, you need to review for these journals because it's your duty, which I call double think in this article. It's your duty to contribute to this. You publish, say 2 papers a year, and so when each paper has, say, it requires 3 reviewers. So when you publish 2 papers, there are 6 reviewers in the background, and then there are the editors. So you need to contribute to this as if you are obligated to contribute pro bono to support publishers who are making millions behind. They can make as much money as they want. It's good for them, but at the end of the day, we want to access this literature. That's all what we are asking. So open access, there are first, before I go to this roadmap, there are different levels of open access. There is the green open access first. It says green. I'm not sure why it's called green, but it's not the ideal option. When you think greens means good option. Green basically means sharing the preprint or the postprint of your article, not the final copy edited version. And usually this is legal. You can just share it on, ResearchGate or on your website or on academia or any of these websites. So this is not really ideal because it requires the author to share it. It's not the final version, but at least it can help in many cases. The second option is the gold open access, which is, this is gold. It's not just green, it's gold, but still very problematic because it requires the authors to pay to publish so that readers can read for free without subscription. Now, this is also problematic because it introduces additional inequalities because publication fees are very high. Year after year, they are becoming higher and higher. Why do I have to pay $3,000 to publish a PDF online? The whole business model is wrong. Something is wrong. It just, you can have it copy edited for $20 and can host it. And there are too many solutions to list here. Just how can we solve this problem and make a PDF available online? Too many problems with this business model. And some journals are charging more and more. The more their impact factor increases, the more they charge. It's just becoming a game now. So gold open access, also problematic. And in fact, there are arguments that gold open access has an inherent conflict of interest, because the journal, in most cases, it's for a profit. Even if it is not for a profit, it supports itself based on the publication fees that the author pays. If they reject this paper, they will lose money. So it's not in their best interest to reject papers, even if their quality is poor. So there is an inherent conflict of interest. There shouldn't be this conflict of interest. They should be neutral, and their financial support should come from elsewhere. And then there is the diamond open access level. Sometimes it's called the platinum gold open access. Diamond, great, better than gold, which is in this case better. And diamond open access means neither the author nor the reader pays any money. The support should come from elsewhere. It could come from a university sponsoring this journal, could be from an association. Will go bankrupt. Yes, some publishers should go bankrupt. It's not a bad thing. They should go bankrupt. And so it shouldn't be for profit. The first, why is it for profit in the first place? You know, it shouldn't be for profit. It should be community service. And it could, the financial support could come from universities, as I said, could come from associations, could come from conferences, could come from other activities. And you could make an argument for editors and reviewers being paid, but that may not be necessary because the situation is, nobody's getting paid, especially reviewers. It could be part of their community service, and this could be acknowledged by their universities in their promotion, etc., part of their service. Now, now to the roadmap that I explained in this paper. The roadmap has 3 parts, and it depends heavily on citations, because citations are directly related to the impact factor of the journal. We always hear that this journal is indexed in ISI Web of Science, in Scopus, and this impact factor is this, is that. Impact factor is nothing more than the number of citations in the past 2 years. That's it. It's just an equation, the number of papers published and the number of citations these published papers received in the past 2 years. That's it. It's nothing magical about this number. If you want to increase the number of the impact factor, just increase the number of citations, and that can be a lot of things you can do to increase the number of citations, or decrease the number of publications that you publish. Basically, that's how you improve your impact factor. So in this roadmap, there are 3 stages. The first stage I called field preparation, which means establishing diamond open access journals and supporting these journals so that people have the option to publish their work in these journals, and supporting these journals so that these journals could be established from scratch, or these journals can be flipped from existing closed access journals. Some journals that are currently operated by publishers are not actually owned by these publishers. Sometimes they are owned. The publisher itself established this journal. Sometimes the publisher did not establish this journal, but only has an agreement with the journal to publish it and make it closed access. And the actual owner of this journal is an association. And this is true in our several journals in our field are like this, like language learning. It's not owned by Wiley. like the Modern Language Journal, TESOL Quarterly, and this journal, the Dutch Journal of Applied Linguistics, is owned by a Dutch association. And this journal is a live example of flipping its model to diamond open access. A few years ago, this very journal was operated by John Benjamin, and it was closed access. And they decided to cancel this agreement with the publisher and make it open access completely.
Yes, I can totally see how.
Yeah, I think there
Yeah,
is a question here
yeah,
about just
yeah.
reading the question. It says, yeah, publication fees. So yeah, publication fees, this is for gold open access. There are open access journals that are diamond level that do not charge fees. And if you want to know these journals, you can go to my own personal website. Let me post the link in the chat here. And I have a list of these journals that you can either read from or publish from to we just put it in the chat for anybody interested. And you can publish in any of these journals free of charge, and you can also read from any of these journals also free of charge. So yeah, so the Dutch Journal of Applied Linguistics was a closed access journal operated by John Benjamin, but it was not owned by that publisher. At some point, they decided to not renew the contract with John Benjamin and flip to Diamond Open Access and be supported by their association. So this is the field preparation stage where making journals, publication venues available, publication venue is more general because you can have books, Diamond Open Access books, and we do have some options in our field like Applied Linguistics Press, for example, and Science Press that publishes language-related books. So this is the first field, the first stage, field preparation. In the second stage, which I called citation migration, which means we start, as I said, impact factor is the most important thing for many people, an important consideration for many people around the world. And that's exclusively based on the number of citations. So if we start citing these diamond open access journals, their impact factor will increase. And because you are citing these, the impact factor of the other journals will decrease. So it will become more attractive, actually, the open, because first, the impact factor is higher. Second, it's open for everybody. So more people will read your research if you publish it open access. So this is the second stage. And in the third stage, which I called formal activism, where I expect people will start in grassroots initiatives, and because they will say this is unethical. Why should you publish in these venues that are closed access when you have other equal or even better options that are open? It's unethical. So let me share my screen to see this. Is it? Yeah. So I'm sure. I hope that you can see this roadmap, and yes, and holding researchers accountable through consequences to those who insist on contributing to closed access journals without a valid reason. There are some valid reasons. You can, but I would imagine at that stage, because it will become clearly unethical when you apply for a job or apply for a promotion within your institution and show them your CV, and they see that there are publications from closed access journals, they will say, why are you publishing these journals? You have to explain. So it becomes inconvenience to actually publish in these journals, hopefully. Questions, other questions, anything in the chat? Let me see.
Maybe I can ask a follow-up question about the
Yeah.
three stage map. I mean, all of these sounds really exciting, and I would imagine they require a lot of sort of collective efforts or at least consensus sort of field-wide. I wonder what do you think, which stage do you think would face the most resistance or most challenges?
I think the first stage is the most crucial one, because once you establish the scene, things will snowball. So I think as if we have more and more open access journals, and if we raise awareness that these journals are there, you can publish free of charge. Your readers will be able to read it free of charge. I would imagine this will be the most difficult stage to. Um, I think, yeah, definitely we are in stage one. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there is an interesting comment in the chat. Robert Maxwell was the evil genius behind the closed access movement. Yes, there is an article in the Guardian, I think, that explains this in detail, and I'm going to post it in the chat for anybody. And let me share it here on the screen. This is the article. So scientific publishing is a ripoff. We fund research. It should be free. So this is, I think this is the article that explains this issue. Yeah,
Oh,
this is
no.
the guy responsible for the whole thing. This is the guy.
May I ask a question?
Yeah. Yes, ask your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Ali. How are you doing?
Salam. Hi.
Yeah, actually, I didn't get exactly, I'm getting confused over here. The idea of open access itself, as I mentioned in the comments that he have elaborated on the types of open access. What is open access itself? What does it mean? Access to articles to be downloaded and you get information from, or open access means free of APCs, article processing charges. What does exactly it mean?
Okay. So open access means readers can read the article they want without having to pay, either directly or through a subscription from their institution. So, for example, if we go to, I gave the example of the Modern Language Journal, for example. If we go to the Modern Language Journal, here, let's just open it just as a demonstration. And we go to, for example, just browse all issues. So these are the issues. The journal was established long time ago, as you can see here. So more than 100
Sorry,
years ago.
we can't
Sorry?
see the current window. Yeah, we're still seeing the PDF.
Okay, let me just share it again so that okay, so you can see it now, hopefully. Yeah, so this
Yes.
is so first, I'm sorry that it wasn't showing previously. If you go to my website, there is a list of open access journals. You can go and see them. Let's see how many so far. with their indexing status. And you have like over 200 in different areas within applied linguistics and second language acquisition. These are all open access. And if we have an example of a non-open access journal, so here, the Modern Language Journal, we go to browse, we see the issues. You see, this is the issues. The journal was established in 1910, which is more than 100 years ago. And if we want to go to, say, you happen to have an article from the 90s, for example, and you go to this issue, I'm just picking something completely random, and you want to read the PDF. So what's this? Reasonable Expectations, Oral Proficiency Goals for Intermediate Level Students of German by these two authors. And you want to read the PDF. It says, get access to the full version. You have to pay $12 for 48 hours, or online only, or download the PDF for almost $50. You can't access the paper. You can't read it. It's not open access. And if you look at the number of pages, it's hardly over 10 pages. It's like 11 pages only, and you have to pay up to $50. So that's like $10 per page. You know, I'm sure that's a reasonable cost to pay just to read this. So many people can't read the literature, so they can't contribute to this literature. So this is an example of a closed access journal. If we go to an open access journal from this list, so let's pick, for example, you know, I don't know, ESP Today, for example, I don't know. Let's see this journal as an example of open access. And we go to back issues. We see that this journal was established in 2013. If we go to any issue randomly, we see the list of articles here, something random, translating the English constitutional discourse into Spanish, the case of, etc., etc. You have the PDF and read it. You don't have to pay anything. If we pick another example, let's see something, the Journal of Language and Education, for example. We open it here. We see this journal. We go to, where is the archives? We see this journal was established in 2018. We pick something random. We go to, so this is the journal. Yeah, pick something random. Dual training in language, the critics foreign language, CLIL pre-service, primary education teachers in Spain. Again, Spain for some reason. So we see the, click on the PDF, and then we get the full article. It's just opening now. Hopefully.
So, Prof. Ali,
Yeah.
Really sorry for interruption, but to make sure that I get your point right, by open access, it is meant that access to the articles to be obtained from the journal's website. It has nothing to do with the publication fees, right?
Partly, yes. In terms of publication fees, I'm not sure why the PDF is not working here, but open access, there are two types of open access. The open access can be gold, which means the author has to pay, but the reader doesn't pay. And this list of journals are not gold open access. You don't have to pay to publish. There are other journals that are diamond open access, like this list that you can see. And these, you don't have to pay to publish. So open access cover both. Sometimes you pay and sometimes you don't pay. And if you have to pay, this is gold.
All right, I appreciate that. But you are standing against paying in the first place, or you are against not being allowed to have access to the materials in the journals? Which is which?
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting question. Which is better than the other? Now, the worst model is the closed access, of course, that readers can't. You publish for free. You don't have to pay, which sounds attractive. You just go submit your paper through the system, usually Scholar One or something, and get the paper published. You don't have to pay a penny. But if readers want to read it, then they have to pay. As an author, you don't get anything, of course, which is funny. And so this is bad. Sure, we agree with this. This is the whole thing. Now, gold open access, where authors pay, it's slightly better, but still problematic because the fees can be very high in many cases, like thousands of dollars, unjustifiably high. So this gold open access is better, but still has some problems. And then the best model is the diamond open access model, which nobody pays. And the financial support should come from universities, institutions, and even libraries can support this, because libraries will have to pay for subscriptions anyway. They can divert these funds to diamond open access journals. That's it. This is one of the solutions.
Yeah, but Dr. Ali, I'm sorry if I'm just keep asking so many questions, but it is really such an interesting topic, and I do apologize for the inconvenience. For the sake of getting promoted at your workplace, a university, for example, or a research center, what you all care about is to get your article published. So why should the researcher care about the readers, whether they get access or not?
Because it's an ethical imperative. Now, in order for you to publish, you need to read the literature. If you happen to be in a privileged institution in the West and the global North, then you may not even think about these issues, and you may be justified in saying, who cares? I can access everything I want. I can publish everything I want. If you are in the global North, in the global South, in order to be able to publish in top journals, you need to be aware of the latest literature and discussions and debates happening in your field. And if you are unable to access this literature, and if your promotion requirements require you to publish in high-ranking journals, in index journals, you will not be able to publish without reading the latest literature, which is the whole problem. Is this clear? I want to hear your response to this. I want to have this conversation, Mr.
Oh,
yeah.
I am Muhammad Abdul Ghani from Qasim University, Saudi Arabia.
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Muhammad, yeah. What is your reaction to my response?
Yeah, actually, still, since I'm getting my article published, I know it might sound kind of selfish, but researchers would like their articles to be out there, to be published, regardless whether they are open access or non-open access. So the reading problem and materials being available to readers, this is not a main concern for researchers, as I've mentioned earlier.
Interesting. So again, I repeat, from an ethical and moral point of view, which is the whole point of this article, is that there is inequitable access to the literature, and there are people in less privileged societies who cannot contribute to this literature. So there is an ethical issue here. When you go and publish your research in a closed access journal, you are contributing to this inequality. You can share the preprint and the postprint, and this is a different topic, online so that people can have it. But there are ethical implications that, if you read my paper, let me just share the link in this paper. Let me just, if somebody could share the link, I think it's in the chat here. If you read this, I try to make comparisons between the status quo and modern slavery, and even slavery. In the past, people said exactly the same thing as you, and even more in relation to slavery. They said, okay, slavery is, there are economic benefits to slavery. The slaves themselves are benefiting from slavery because they are getting this, they are getting that. Now, these arguments are just horrendous. You cannot think in this way anymore, because we are past that stage. So my argument in this paper, at some point in the future, people will look back and say the situation was so horrendous. People were saying, I want to publish my article and I don't care whether readers read it afterwards or not. So what you are saying is that if Westerners read my paper, that's enough. If people in other countries can't read my paper, who cares? I just want to publish for the. So we are academics, and we should have high morals and have high ethics, and we should think more than
Dr. Ali. Sorry,
Yes.
sorry for interruption, but the
No,
blame is not on
that's
me.
fun. That's fun argument. Yeah, sure.
As a researcher, the blame is not on me. It's like you are just overburdening the researchers and you keep blaming them for publishing their research at these types of journals. This is not my problem as a researcher. So, and these, we cannot fix up the entire world, global south or global north. This is not in our hands. These are huge matters, reliant on governments and making resources, educational resources available for people. These are huge things. So one of the solutions is that people can make collaborations with people from the global north, as you described them, so they can facilitate, making these resources available, and it's not the end of the world. So as the researcher, I'm not to be blamed, and it has nothing to do with the idea of slavery and all these things. We are making a federal case out of it here.
Okay, so I from what you are saying, it seems that you did not read my paper, which I shared the link in the chat. In my paper, I explained that I myself do publish in these journals. And I myself publish in these journals because there is a widespread problem that is not only me. And if I let me see, what did I say? I said it was an excuse or something. Let me share it. Let me see what I said here. I myself routinely, the author, myself, so I'm the one who wrote this paper, just to be clear. I myself contribute to and engage, engage by, means as a reviewer and editor also, not just as an author, with big publisher journals, and halting such contributions will only harm my own career. Just exactly your point. The same is true for most colleagues, including yourself. The field needs to reach a critical mass, and this is why we are having this discussion. You can't just, overnight, you can just change the publishing industry or change your behavior completely. I view this as a temporary excuse, albeit not not devoid of ethical implications. There are some ethical implications even with these excuses. However, once this critical mass is reached, so that's something future now, with plenty of equally ranked diamond open access alternatives available, failing to move to the next logical step would be a symptom of moral schizophrenia. Recognizing that recognizing the unethical nature of the very existence of these publishers, but not recognizing the ethical issues and continuing to uncritically support them. So I think we are on the same boat here. I'm not saying that everybody should change their they could, if they, especially senior scholars who are more capable of choosing the venues they can publish in, and their choice will have a big impact on people who follow their research. But you are right, not everybody can overnight change their publishing behavior, because they have institutional requirements, they have other restrictions, it's their livelihood. But we need to think long term. We need collective action, and this is called a roadmap, how one possible future where we can go. Dr. Muhammad, I would like to hear your response.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't read your research article, and I have just received, the invitation for this Zoom meeting, and I will read it later, inshallah.
Now, in the case of books, this might make some sense, not too much sense, because the author gets some royalties. And in many cases, these royalties are very minuscule, like 4%. And this means that more than 95% of the profit goes to the publisher, and less than 5% of the profits go to the author. Now, at least there is something to the author, small as it might be. But in the case of journal articles, the author is making this, spending a whole year possibly, and to produce this work. Authors themselves review for other papers submitted by their colleagues. Editors do the work either for free or for a very minimal sum of money. And then all this is made behind paywalls, so that many researchers around the world in underprivileged societies can't have access to the literature. Clearly, there is an ethical issue in this business model. Other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Al-Hoorie, and thank you all the guests that we had today, and they contributed to a really hot topic, hot discussion. And I personally really benefited from your talk and from the discussion. It was really useful, and I'm not sure if people, our attendees, have any other questions.
Let's see if there are other questions from the audience. Any other questions? There are something in the chat. Yeah, there is an interesting comment here. Another issue is that many of these big journals, as you refer to them, reject many articles submitted by those in the global south, yet later they contact them to review their papers, which is they are doing work for them, but they can't publish, which is true, Some people make this comment. You send a paper to a journal, that paper gets rejected, which basically means, you have a problem with this, with that. So then you get a response or an invitation to review a paper for them. So yeah, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. Yeah. Yeah, of course, there are some arguments saying that, the rejection is for the paper, not for you as a scholar. It's this, but if you keep rejecting these papers one after one, then it's getting funny.
I am thinking about this, the whole story of today from another perspective. Um, as we know that, first of all, I should say that I am based in Iran, and there aren't really, it's really difficult to have access to articles to the literature. And I can see, on the other hand, there are a lot of educational problems that they need to be investigated, they need to be studied, and I am very sure that the results and the solutions that can be found academically, they can be really useful for the literature, for the field. But we don't have access to the literature to get to know what has been done previously or what other scholars have said about the problem, about similar problems like that. And in this way, I think, I'm thinking that because I can see around me, there are a lot of talents that will be overlooked. There are a lot of people who can have a voice in the literature, but they will be overlooked. I mean, they will be
Yes, and
ignored because they don't have access.
And some people, out of desperation, may quit academia.
Yes, that can be really discouraging for a lot of people, I can see. And a lot of talents will be wasted. I'm not just talking about my own country, I'm talking about the global south in general. A lot of talents will be wasted, a lot of discouragement will be spread between the scholars or those who can have a voice, who can have brilliant ideas. And I think this is another problem to this closed access and not available literature to the people, to those who can do something, who are living in the context of the problem, and who can, in fact, they have contextual awareness, they have cultural awareness, and they know the context much better, so they can conduct more meaningful research in that area. But because they don't have access to the literature, and they don't have that academic knowledge to their to the literature, so they won't be able to conduct research. On the other hand, I'm thinking, why is it always like this, that the ones who try the hardest, they have to, I mean, they don't get the main benefit. I mean, the scholars, they study a lot, they read a lot, they try hard, and they finally publish an article, but they don't get the money that they have, which has to be paid to them. On the other hand, they have to pay to have their work published. I mean, this is something really unbelievable for me, that why the business is going like this.
Yes, this issue has been discussed in the literature a lot. If anybody is interested, this is an interesting article if you would like to read it in The Guardian. And so the issue here is that both for gold open access and for closed access, there is kind of double payment, which is sometimes triple payment involved here. Because when you do research, you are using, in many cases, in many disciplines, you are using resources from your institution. You may be using funds from your government, for example, or funding body. You are using some resources. And then you are giving the fruits of your labor to the publisher free of charge. And then that publisher is asking other colleagues to review it for free. So again, this you are using free labor. And then putting this literature behind paywalls. So your institution, at the end of the day, pays for the subscription, pays for your funding, pays for the salaries of the reviewers who review. It's just triple payment. It's completely ridiculous. It's a completely ridiculous system that is just, we are a laughing stock. Academics are a laughing stock. We are being fooled by big publisher, as I call it. And it's a collection action problem. And as I said, people in the future will look back and write history books, maybe write movies about us. You people in the 21st century were, sending this in a scholar one, and then, saying, oh, congratulations, you have been accepted. Look, and they have a party and things. These fools, look at these fools.
Yes, that's true. So I was wondering if the audience have any other questions. Just to add one more note, this was the final reading club event that we had for this year, which was absolutely amazing. We had already planned for 30 minutes, but it's almost like 1 hour. And it's really interesting for me. Thanks to the audience, thanks to Dr. Ali Al-Hoorie for the brilliant topic and discussion, and the patience that he had for answering the audiences. If you have any other questions, it would be amazing if you could email us, or if you could share with us on our social media accounts. I was wondering, Monk, if you're here and if there is anything else you want to add.
No, again, very well said. So I echo everything you've just said, and thank you again, Ali, for having this amazing talk and this interesting sort of debate with the audience. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would like to thank everyone for staying with us till now. And of course, one last thing is just stay tuned. We will be planning more exciting events in the next year as well, and join us or sign up to our mailing list if you haven't already. So thank you, everyone. We will be posting the.
If anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me through my website or through my email or even through WhatsApp. My number is on my website. Everyone is welcome.
Yeah. Right. Please do get in touch, and stay tuned for more exciting stuff to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Okay, I'll stop.
everybody.